Cool. Thank you all so much for joining. This is one of our and many of a series of town hall events that are focused on, reviewing the big policy kind of priorities that we've come up with, different subject matter areas for 2025. We're at a really kind of interesting time, I think, in our country. Obviously, the election was very interesting. I've been telling this to people, and I think it holds true that our work in Illinois is more important than it has ever been. And I'm excited to at least work with a lot of folks here to see what we can do to, make Illinois kind of a beacon for other states in terms of sustainable agriculture policy and a number of other food system related things to really, improve the food landscape in Illinois. First off, I'll introduce myself. My name is Elliot Clay. I'm the land use programs director for Illinois Environmental Council. I've been with these guys for about 6 years. I'm a lobbyist for them. I'm based, actually reporting from Auburn right now, but based in the Springfield area. And I've been working on this stuff for a long time, and we've gathered some really great people here to talk to you about some of the policy priorities that we have coming up in the sustainable agriculture space. We did have Representative Harper was going to be joining us. She may still here in a minute, but we're going to keep an eye out. But quickly, I wanted to just give a rundown of kind of the order of operations tonight and who we're going to have speaking. First up, we're going to have Molly Gleason, or actually, Molly, your new last name. I'm sorry, you're going to have to correct me.
Pickering. I'm sorry. I don't know why it popped up as Gleason there.
All good. Molly Pickering from the Illinois Stewardship Alliance is going to be talking to us about, a lot of the really great work that they're going to be doing with improving, lots of food infrastructure things at the local level that are really, really important. We're also going to be hearing from Roger Cooley, who is the executive director of Chicago Food Policy Action Council, to talk about good food purchasing, which is a really big initiative we're going to be working on next year with a number of partners here. Next, after that, we will have Chris Reynolds with American Farmland Trust to talk about the nutrient loss reduction work that we've been working on for a long time and where it stands and where we're kind of seeing it move. And then lastly, we're actually going to hear from another IEC employee, Chad Wallace, who is our Rural Affairs Director, to talk about some exciting work that we're doing on livestock issues next year. We've got a really deep lineup of really cool policy things happening, and really excited to share it with you all and get feedback, answer questions at the end of this if you've got any, and hopefully get jazzed up for next year. With that, Molly, I'm going to hand it over to you to lead into ISA, if that's cool.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Elliot. And I'm here at a staff retreat. So if you see some staff floating around, we're just hanging out tonight. So you might see them in the background. But one of the main issues that our farmer members have raised in the last few years is the need for more local food infrastructure like mills, canneries, processing facilities, community kitchen, food hubs, cold storage, and trucking to help get food from farms to communities and institutions. And, years ago, Illinois had these kinds of things. Every community had a butcher shop and a cannery and a grocery store. But now those things don't exist in Illinois because of policy that's encouraged consolidation and corporate control. And what that means for our state is that our communities can't feed themselves. And in fact, Illinois imports 95% of the food we eat, which means that every dollar that you spend on food, 95 cents is going out of the state. And that is costing us billions in economic loss every year, but it's also detrimental to the environment as well, because we know that small scale diversified agriculture, where you can grow your own food, fruits, vegetables, livestock, that this is the kind of agriculture that is really good for the environment, that sinks carbon, and that is needs to be part of our system here in Illinois. So 2 years ago, our members drafted legislation to create the local food infrastructure grant, drawing on similar grant programs that exist in nearly every neighboring Midwest state. And that grant program was funded at $2 million in 2023. And so that was the first year. It was funded. It rolled out in 2024 this year, and we received 250 plus applications requesting 24 million for projects. So, but the grant is only 2 million. 24 million was requested. So there's a huge need for this grant program. We were only able to, 19 grants were able to be awarded this year. And we are already seeing amazing impacts from the grant program across the state, such as the opening of a new USDA chicken processing plant in Southern Illinois and a community food hub in Peoria that's helping businesses low income businesses get started. So there's really great programs this grant program is doing really great things for the community. But we need to see this happen again year after year. And it's only in the budget. It's not a permanent part of the budget, so we need to get continued funding every year. So what we're asking for this year is, again, that we have the included $2 million for the local food infrastructure grant in the state budget this year. So yeah, that's the main gist, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Molly. I know that you need to hop because you've got your staff retreat and everything. So we're going to hold most questions till the end, but I would like to open it up for a second if there's anybody that has any questions for Molly about what's going on in the local food scene and maybe how they can support and that kind of fun stuff. You feel free to come off mute or raise your hand, whatever you're most comfortable with.
I see a question in the chat. Sorry. Anything on cottage foods this year? Not likely, Roger. Not anything that has come up drastically. There's a couple changes that are being proposed to the cottage food guide, but they're not legislative changes. It's just kind of some administrative clarity on some of the products that can be made and where they can be sold. So yeah, thank you for the question though.
Okay. If nothing else, Molly, we can let you go. We definitely appreciate you, and we will definitely be talking with all of our members about all the fun stuff ISA is working on this year and figuring out how we can all help support you all.
Thanks so much, Elliot. Glad to be here as always, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions about the local food infrastructure grant. I'll drop my email in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you, Molly. Give everybody at ISA my love. Hi, Liz. Cool. Next up on the lineup, we have got Roger Cooley with the Chicago Food Policy Action Council. Roger, I'm going to put you in the spotlight here really quick. If I can figure out how to wait, there we go. There we go. Cool. Roger, thank you. I'll let you let you get going.
Thanks, Elliot. Excited to be on and with all these other advocates for this really great platform that's coming together through IEC. It's been a good evolution over the last few years, really kind of building more momentum and expanding what that package can look like. So really appreciative of having the opportunity to talk tonight. I'm Roger Cooley, the Executive Director of the Chicago Food Policy Action Council, and we're focused on and looking at the state adopting what's called the Good Food Purchasing Program or Good Food Purchasing Policy. It sets standards for the food that's purchased by an entity, institution, agency, around 5 different categories. We've worked hard in the local region of Chicago and Cook County and got the city and county to adopt this policy. So it covers Chicago Public Schools, the Park District, Chicago Park District, the Department of Family and Support Services, who run the senior meal programs in Chicago. For Cook County, it's the Cook County Hospital, the Cook County Jail, and the Juvenile Detention Center. But so the policy focuses on supporting and set standards around local, sustainable production, animal welfare guidelines, fair labor practices throughout the food system, and also pays attention to the health and quality of the food. There's been also an addition of focus on equity within the purchasing and a high priority on transparency. So it's clear where the food that's being purchased by the entity is also being tracked and identified to allow for making sure they're following through on those standards. So we've been working on this for a few years. Many of the collaborators here, a couple of years ago, got Representative Harper to pass a resolution creating a good food task force that brings together the purchasing agencies, advocates representing those different sectors to come together and um, work on what the policy is going to look like. It took a couple of years to get seated, but we got started this January. So excited for that. And at the same time, did a first run at the bill this spring that would then mandate state agencies who purchase food to follow those guidelines and track their foods. One thing with the good food purchasing policy is it doesn't set kind of arbitrary mandates. There had been the Local Food Farms and Jobs Act that set a 20% goal for local by 2020. There had been no progress, close to no progress, constructive progress made on that goal, partly because there was no mechanism for ongoing tracking, um, building incentives, collaboration, external partners really helping support the departments and agencies to move forward. So we're excited for this new task force that's been implemented. The bill that's been proposed and introduced would include an extension of that task force to make sure there's ongoing collaboration moving forward. We have Rep. Harper, we have a couple other representatives and senators, state senators on that task force as well. So we're in the process of now negotiating a conversation with procurement officers to make sure what the bill that's being proposed syncs up well with their existing code, while at the same time making sure that there's clear process for once the bill is passed, that there's clear progress that can be made over time with each through the good food purchasing work. And that one of the things we've also been leaning into is, again, we're not setting kind of an arbitrary standard for each institution, but what it does do is it sets a baseline. So once once the bill is passed, and some of the institutions who have would have a contract coming up, we would look at their existing purchasing, put it through the filter of the 5 standards, and then that would become the floor for the next contract. And then during the life, and then folks bidding on those contracts would then say, hey, we can meet this target in local, we can expand our sustainable, we've got producers who are following animal welfare standards. We've got we know that we're buying from a worker-owned cooperative or employee-owned processing facility, for example, and those things would really start increasing the score and make that food more attractive over time. So excited for this opportunity.
Cool. Thank you, Roger. And you guys have already done a lot of work on this with like the city and Cook County, right?
Yeah, so city passed it in 2016 and the county passed it in 2018. So we've been working with their institutions to gradually build up their supply chains as well as follow through on ongoing assessments, doing things like shifting their menus to be more you know highlighting menu items that are more seasonal when things are available, menu items that are more match the vendors who are already local, the producers and suppliers who are already local to our area. So, a lot of these institutions have never paid attention to these standards. So they've just kind of used the same value chains, the same supply chains over years, and haven't, had any incentive to have to start looking and being more creative with how they're pulling together their menus, but also the purchasing options. Could also be that they would transition some of their meat to plant-based, but not move exclusively to plant-based, which does allow them to have more money to spend on grass-fed beef rather than um, feedlot raised beef, because they could spend a bit more on more higher qualities once they start making those kind of informed choices. But excited for moving the state forward, getting that commitment, and then having years of follow through to move it forward. So
That's great, Roger. Thank you so much. And yeah, as Roger said, there's been a task force meeting on this. Roger and I were both lucky enough to get pointed to it by the lieutenant governor to do this work. And we've had some really robust discussions. Really excited to see this move forward next year. I think most of the great policy we do in the state is stuff that is actually led by the state itself. And it will be a cool opportunity to have our state government really supporting local farmers and producers and getting some better food into the hands of folks that need it. So again, thank you, Roger. We might have some more questions at the end, but appreciate you. Next up, I'm going to switch it over to Chris Reynolds. If you are ready for us, I'm going to put you in the spotlight now. I will flag that Chris was nice enough to join us while he was driving back from Indianapolis doing all the good work that American Farmland Trust does. Chris is definitely like one of the state, I would consider one of the state experts on nutrient loss reduction, efforts that are happening in Illinois, and definitely appreciate you being here. So Chris, I'll let you take it away.
Well, thank you, Elliot. And yeah, I did pull over, so I'm no longer driving, but sorry, my apologies for the poor lighting. Yeah, and Elliot, you mentioned earlier in the opening, just it seems like we've been working on the nutrient loss reduction strategy for a long time, and it has been, it's the strategy was released back in 2015. I came to American Farmland Trust and a couple years later, and we've been working towards the goals of the strategy, since the beginning when the strategy was released. And for just a little bit of background, it does break it down by point source and non-point source. And so point source is primarily the municipalities, wastewater districts, and municipal water districts. And then the non-point source is really focused on agriculture losses. And so primarily, we focus on the non-point source side and trying to promote conservation practices that will reduce nutrient loss from agriculture fields. When the strategy was released, it identified 2025 as the interim goals target date. And so we are coming up on that interim goal this next year. And every 2 years, a report is produced from the nutrient loss reduction strategy from the Illinois EPA and the Illinois Department of Agriculture, and it kind of identifies where we're at. And the last report came out in 2023, and unfortunately showed that we had been going in the wrong direction, especially when it comes to the non-point sources. So we'd actually saw increases in nitrate and phosphorus loss from non-point ag sources. The interim goal was to reduce nitrate loss by 25% from the baseline and phosphorus loss by 45%. Now, I want us to all keep in mind that even though the interim goal is coming up next year, we likely won't have the data to show where we ended up until 2026 or possibly even 2027. The other thing to point out from the strategy itself is that there was no other date, final date listed for the strategy. So there was an interim goal, but really no year listed for us to try to reach the final goals. That initial strategy laid out a lot of different scenarios as it relates to non-point source nutrient reduction. Those scenarios included infield management type practices like cover crops and no-till and nutrient management. It also included perennial land use change, diversifying crop rotations, more perennials on the landscape, and then also edge of field practices like filter strips and buffers and wetlands and things of that nature. And so all these different scenarios were put together to try to identify paths in order for us to reach the goals of the strategy. Each of these practices has reduction coefficients included with it. Cover crops, for example, can reduce nitrate loss and phosphorus loss by 40% each. Nutrient management can reduce anywhere from 7 to 10%. So all these different strategies also include a lot of cost, and these strategies and scenarios included annual costs anywhere from $400 to $800 million a year. And I point that out because I think in the context of what we're talking about today, there has been very little investment from the state in these strategies themselves and in helping put farmers in a better position to reach these goals. And actually, this past year, we saw a reduced investment in the strategy in the form of reducing soil and water conservation district funding. That funding was cut in half. Soil and water conservation districts are exist in all the counties of the state, and there's 97 actual districts. Some of them are combined, and they are the delivery system for conservation at that local level, and are really essential to providing that on the ground assistance to farmers and helping them adopt new practices. And so it's, I think it's important. Obviously, one of our priorities is to restore funding, but it's also to increase funding. And we, recognize that without those boots on the ground, it's going to be really challenging for us to reach those, goals. In the past, we've worked closely with IEC and several of the partners on this call, like ISA, on the Fall Covers for Spring Savings program. This program was started back in 2018. We're now going into the 6th year of the program. And it was I think the first investment in the nutrient loss reduction strategy provides farmers with a discount for on their crop insurance. Crop insurance is the farmer's #1 trusted safety net, and we combined a conservation practice with that. We also feel like cover crops are a safety net as well. They make your farm more resilient, more sustainable, help you weather, no pun intended, climate change. And so I think it's important to note out that while it was a big win to get that program established, it has not met the demand from what exists today, and our efforts to try to get increased funding for that program have been fairly minimal. We did see an increase this past year, but nothing like what is needed to really start to move the needle. We know that the farmers have appreciated this program. We know that farmers, and it's a very small investment for the state with a fairly minimal administrative burden attached with it. So, that's one example of a program I think that that we want to see increased funding for into the future. The Gulf hypoxia funding has been included in that program the last few years, which has helped boost up the total acres available, an additional 40,000 acres. So this year, 190,000 acres will be available. To put that in perspective, looking at the different scenarios, we need around 40% of the agricultural lands to have cover crops on them or some type of change happening. We are sitting somewhere in that 5 to 7% range right now with adoption. Now that has doubled over the last several years, but still not moving the needle at the scale that's needed in order for us to reach our goals. What's interesting, and I was talking to Elliot about this prior to joining the Zoom. We saw a huge increase in stream flow. So thinking about the amount of water leaving the state of Illinois during the 5-year period leading up to the last report, so 2018 to 2022, somewhere in that range, we saw a 15% increase in the amount of water. I think we all recognize that we're seeing more intense, more large rainfall events. Just earlier this week at my farm, had over 7 inches of rain in 36 hours. That is crazy to think about. What's interesting is that the last couple of years, we've actually had some drier periods. We've actually seen a decrease in overall stream flow. So now the 3-year average is actually down about 10%. And so, we know that as stream flow increases, nutrient losses also increase. It's the load increases overall. So we're seeing some decreases in overall nitrate on the 3-year average. We're still seeing increases in phosphorus going up over that time period. So We still have a lot of work to do. There's a lot of pieces of the puzzle that still need to come together. I think an investment in conservation districts is the foundation of what's needed. Even if we increase incentives across the state, we still have to have a delivery system that's going to be able to get farmers to adopt those practices. My goal and when I talk to farmers is in getting them to try a new practice for the first time. It's not just getting them to try it, but it's making sure that they have the information and the resources so that they can be successful. So that these practices, they'll continue to adopt them on their farm year after year. So, Elliot, happy to take questions later, and I'm on my phone, so I can't see everything in the chat. I saw a question maybe pop up, but happy to answer that now or later, whichever you prefer.
I was gonna say maybe I'll have you answer it now, because I think it kind of dovetails with what you were just saying. And their question was like, what is preventing farmers from like implementing cover crops, or I think even more broadly, conservation practices in general? Like, I know you said that some of this is just new to folks in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors preventing. Right now, farm economy is way down. Commodity prices are down. So that's, as farmers think about adopting new things that may have a cost with them, it's really challenging to, for them to try to add that to their operation. So, we have to do a better job of showcasing the economic benefits of these practices. And I will say that, overall, there's a lot of federal policy changes that need to happen in order for conservation practices to be, a bigger part of the picture, when we think about a farmer's entire operation. It's one of the reasons why we've tried to work with crop insurance. Crop insurance is 60% of it subsidized through the Farm Bill. So there's a need, maybe not as much of an appetite for some changes to some of that policy, but it's something that we continue to work on. We don't have a Farm Bill right now, so there's a lot of things that they're still up in the air. What that might look like for the next 5 years. But I think overall, farmers have, farmers that have been doing things a certain way over many years, it's hard to change. And cover crops and no-till and some of these other practices, they require a much higher level of management than what exists today. It's this fall, for example, we had a really dry fall, and you're trying to get harvest done at the same time you need to be planting cover crops. At the same time, we're not getting rain, in order for those cover crops to germinate and to grow. So there's certainly a lot of challenges. I like to say that, climate change is one of the main reasons why we need to be adopting more of these practices. But at the same time, it's making it challenging. It's making it challenging to get things established in the fall, and it's making it challenging to get them terminated in the spring.
Yeah. Thank you for all that insight, Chris. And I think one thing I'd piggyback off of that you had mentioned was, and I think, again, kind of going back to my earlier point in this discussion, is Illinois the policy that's going to be enacted at the state level is going to be more important than ever. The lack of a farm bill right now, and with the incoming new administration, creates even more questions, I think, in the minds of a lot of people about what kind of conservation resources are going to be available from the federal government. So, Illinois won't be able to fix everything, but we do need to stand ready to, have some programs set up here within the state to maybe supplement things that could potentially be lost, which is, I think, a fear of some people at this point.
Yeah, and I think just one other point, the Inflation Reduction Act brought a lot of additional resources from USDA for conservation practices. That funding is at risk of being either swept into the next farm bill or possibly swept altogether. And I think Illinois has started to do a little better job of trying to leverage state resources for those federal dollars, but we still are, I would say, further behind than other states here in the Midwest.
Yeah. Well, Chris, thank you again for talking with us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Elliot.
All right, cool. Next, last but certainly not least, we've got Mr. Chad Wallace from IEC here. I'm going to go ahead and spotlight him. There we go. Chad, I'll let you kick us off.
I'm looking to share my screen.
Oh, cool. Yeah. You see the little green button on the bottom? If not, I can totally share this thing too. I can just go ahead and do it. Let me
All
get
right,
set up.
thanks, Elliot.
No big deal. Gotta make sure I got the right screen up. Okay, cool. All right, let me hit the slideshow button. All right, Chad, you're good to go.
All right, thank you, Elliot. I'll be covering the livestock reform policies for the coming year for IEC. And I am Chad Wallace, Rural Affairs Director for the Illinois Environmental Council. I've also been a lifelong farmer. So next slide. Where are you? We have IEC, we have created a livestock reform coalition. We're tasked with collecting a lot of stories from and insights from rural communities to point out the need for change and the fact that the current policy just doesn't work anymore. Our work in reforming the regulations, which shape the livestock landscape, basically fall into two categories: increased public participation and transparency, and strengthening protections for the environment and public health. Basically, the Livestock Management Facilities Act is what governs the production of livestock in Illinois. Its intent is to protect both the rights of individuals to a clean environment, as well as protect the rights of farmers being able to earn a living raising livestock. The Livestock Management Facilities Act basically comes down to 8 siting criteria, which if those 8 criteria are met, then the project is approved. The Livestock Management Facilities Act has allowed for rapid expansion of livestock here in Illinois. Basically, how we look at it is that the industry has kind of outgrown the act that governs it. So the first one, County Board Authority. We would like to give county boards the ability to have a binding decision in these facilities. Currently, it's just a recommendation. So we've seen a lot of cases where the county has not wanted the facility to be approved, and it has always been approved. In fact, the Illinois Department of Ag has never denied an application. We would like to see the time frame increased to 60 days. I've spoke with numerous people in rural Illinois that have really struggled to follow the deadline, to organize neighbors and be able to give the appropriate information and ask the appropriate questions at these IDOA hearings. Accountability for road repairs and assurances for cut down cost and cleanup. We'd like the company that owns the livestock, because in most cases, in fact, all cases, well, most all cases, the farmer does not own the pigs. He just owns the facility and basically manages the herd for someone else. We would like to see bonds issued for in the case of a facility should have a spill. We would also like to see bonds that kind of guarantee that road repair for these facilities does not fall upon the people that live in that area. One of the big things that I've heard in rural Illinois is that, especially from road commissioners, is the fact that the roads were never designed in these outback areas to handle the daily feed, the transportation of hogs, manure being moved. Another thing that we have heard is that in the event that someone would like to get out of the industry, close down a confinement, it's virtually impossible in most circumstances due to the fact that sometimes it can cost up to $1 million to remove all of the manure waste from the facility. And if a farmer is struggling to make ends meet anyhow, it makes it nearly impossible for him to get out of that industry with the fact that it costs so much to get out of it. We also like to increase transparency from the state agencies. If you were to call Illinois Department of Ag tomorrow and ask them how many CAFOs or how many pigs or dairy cattle are in Illinois, they would not be able to give you an answer. So definitely more is needed in that area for sure. That's all for that one. The second portion of this is strengthen the protections for the environment and public health. One of the citing criteria for the approval of these is setback distances. Currently, it's a ½ mile from the corner of the nearest resident. Property lines are not acknowledged. I've heard from numerous people that there's the property line, they may have a child who is wanting to build a home at the opposite end of the farm, but there's a CAFO right across the road from it now. So we would like to see this at least 2 miles from the resident. We would also like to see that the 2 mile distance be for whether you're an individual family living in the country or if you're a small rural town, that those setbacks are equal. Protect groundwater access for neighbors. Largest concerns that I hear are the amount of water that is used. So by these confinements, we would like to require that the Illinois State Water Survey determine impacts on local groundwater from these facilities, especially with expansions. Once the original facility is built, you can continue to build facilities after that without any public acknowledgement or transparency at all. Decrease manure application on farm operations. Right now, our manure rate is 300 pounds per acre. I'm pretty sure all the states around us are closer to around the 150 pounds per acre. Of course, this could definitely tie into what Chris was talking about earlier with nutrient loss, of course. And increase standards for manure transport. There is currently no regulation for how manure is hauled from a facility to the fields where it's being spread. We have an incident that was reported to us where a farmer was using an old style manure spreader and basically just sloshing this manure on the roads, and people drive through it and gets on their tires and stinks up their house. So definitely giving local authorities some regulation or some accountability for people that are creating these problems for their neighbors would be a great thing. Local food systems. I myself am would be categorized as a small producer. I know that our friends over at the Illinois Stewardship Alliance are working on some of these meat production issues that we have. I know that because I'm not in the industry, I don't have a confinement and I don't have a contract. I basically pay more for all my feed. Processing, of course, is a tremendous issue. The lack of processing is the biggest issue. Too many small farmers trying to process at the same locations. A lot of times people are driving, I know people are driving 3 hours to have chickens processed. So all those things go into making it hard for a smaller producer to be profitable. If you don't have a contract, it's going to be hard to take your meat to JBS. If you are able to take it there, you're definitely not going to get the same price as someone with a contract. Most options for people in my situation are off-farm sales, farmers markets, things such as that. So just kind of equaling up the playing field would be a great thing for people in my situation.
Cool. Thanks, Chad. I'm going to stop sharing my screen really quick, bring you back. Definitely appreciate all the work you've been doing on this and figuring out kind of where we need to go with the regulations on this. Just as some background from folks, getting anything done in the Capitol regarding livestock issues, I'm going to go ahead and just bring everybody back into the fold really quick. Okay, cool. Working in the Capitol on livestock issues has been really difficult for a long time. There's a lot of political pressure on this, but one of the things we've been trying to do is if we want to get this done, we need to start building some evidence about why we need to be doing this. And Chad, I was hoping you could maybe just talk for a second about kind of like what you've been doing with IEC, going out and talking with people.
Okay. Yeah, we had several different strategies when we started out due to, some of these things we found out our strategy had to change. What we did was the informational hearings that IDOA used to have for these sightings. The last one was held in 2019. So what we decided to do was we decided to go back through all their transcripts. Basically, it's everybody's sworn in. It's basically like a court proceeding. And I literally have went through and read thousands of pages of people's concerns and just incredible people, incredible passion, and they are just not able to get anywhere. So what we did was I found their location, went out into the counties and started knocking on doors. And let me tell you, people are extremely surprised when Chad shows up and talking about a hearing they were at 5 years ago. And like I said, I've read them all. They read like a novel. I felt like I knew the people before I even got to their house. So the amazement that somebody was coming out and showing concern was more overpowering than I ever dreamed. But what I found was that people still are concerned for water. A lot of people are hauling water that didn't have to. Just the smell and odor, the air. There are statistics that show breathing issues closer to these operations are altered because of it. I went to Summit in Iowa. I'll just mention this because this was what I found pretty exciting as far as the air. But in Iowa, they did a lot of testing. They did swabs of the homes that were near these and found all kinds of things that were showing up that the industry says doesn't end up making it to these homes. But we've created the coalition. That's an exciting thing. Basically, our goal is 2016 to 2019, there was a real push for change in this livestock industry. And nobody was united. It was just little spots all over the state of Illinois. So what we're working on doing is uniting all these people, creating one voice, so to speak. And like Elliot said, it's going to take a lot of stories, a lot of people coming up to the Capitol and saying to their representatives that this is what I've been experiencing for years. I don't want other people to have to worry about this, and we need change. So.
No, that's great. Thanks, Chad. And I've been super excited about this work, obviously working with you on all of this. Like you said, it's going to be a really big effort, but we've done some really cool things, and we'll actually have more to share with everybody here in the next couple of weeks on some stories that we've collected. I'm excited to share that out. But before we go into maybe some more questions for Chad or for any of the other topics that we covered tonight, I wanted to make one plug on something. One of the big things that is an issue within the agricultural industry, and a lot of you probably already know this, are herbicides and pesticides. There was a report released recently by the Illinois Nature Reserves, or not the Nature Reserves Commission, but the Illinois Natural History Survey, showing herbicide damage at pretty much every natural area that they tested in the state, and there were thousands of samples involved. It was a highlight of something that has become sort of endemic throughout our state. People's private properties being damaged by these, and in the end, we're all being exposed to this stuff in the air a lot of the times without even knowing it. There has not been a huge answer to that from the ag industry, because that is where the vast majority of this is coming from. I wanted to plug this because we're going to be talking more about that specific topic on the town hall that we do for conservation and open space. We kind of juggled whether or not to put it in ag or there, but there's been a lot of talk recently about damage to natural areas, so we thought maybe it would fit better in there. But I wanted to say that out loud so people didn't think we were leaving that on the table, because that's something people are really passionate about right now too. With that, we're at 6:51. Happy to field questions from folks if you have any about where we're going, or if there's something we didn't mention that you want to know about, happy to discuss that too. But yeah, I'd open it up for a minute. I see actually Nicole is off mute. Nicole.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, guys. I was wondering, is Farmers Market in Springfield, has it shut down?
Yeah, that's a good question.
The regular season market ended that last week of October. In Springfield, they have a winter market that is, I presume it's starting in the next few weeks. They'll definitely have one before Thanksgiving, and that might be the first start date. But then I think they plan to have them every 2 weeks until the beginning of regular season market next spring.
Okay, because I shop at Mueller Farm, so they got the best lettuce. Oh, by the way,
That's true.
Where can I guess get the lettuce from them? Where can I get my stuff from them?
There is, I presume that he would be at the winter markets when they start, but his products are also sold through a new site called Illinois Farms. And I don't think I have a link. I could put it, but it's Illinois Farms. Clint Bland is running that. And that's a weekly delivery. They do wholesale and like in consumer to your house type delivery.
Okay. Send me the information.
I'll get that to you, Nicole.
Thanks.
Yep.
Cool. And I guess I'll plug too that if there's anybody else that is looking for farmers market info or any of that kind of fun stuff, Illinois Stewardship Alliance has done some great work in putting together kind of a catalog of like the cottage food landscape in Illinois, and just like farmers in general at farmers markets. I would definitely encourage you all to check out their website if you're looking for more materials there. Okay, anybody else have any questions? Feel free, like I said, come off mute, raise your hand, whatever you would like. If not, we can go ahead and wrap a little bit early, because I know we've got some people that are trying to get home and stuff and just got done picking up their kids, and appreciate them being here. But just want to say in closing, thank you all so much for being on here and being a part of this. We're really excited about where we're going in 2025. Again, I'm going to keep saying it, I can't stress it enough. We're at a pretty important moment, I think, in Illinois policy to do some things to, potentially protect us from some somewhat hostile stuff that could be coming down from DC. This is a really good time to get involved, and I appreciate all of your voices and advocacy on all these issues. And please reach out to me or Chad or anybody else on the IEC team if you have ideas or questions about any of our priorities, we're more than happy to discuss all of that and try to build up for a good year next year in the state legislature. With that, thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your Thursday night, and we will be talking soon.
Thanks.
Take care, everybody.